Okay, let's get started. I think we left off Monday. Harry had gone, we got to Harry going off to the burrow, correct? Flourishing bots? No? Okay, we didn't get off to Harry going off. Okay, I've got you guys confused with my Tuesday class. Did we finish with Harry talking with Dobby? We're in the middle of it. Okay. We're going to make sure I'm thinking of the right class. Today is the 29th. Okay. So let's pick up with Harry and Dobby are talking on pages 16 and 17. And we're going to move really fast today. One of the reasons for that is week from Thursday, week from tomorrow, I'm having surgery on my right knee, so we won't have class on Friday. I'm doing it over beginning of fall break so that I won't miss any other days. So I know that's going to be one day we're already going to be out, in addition to, the last week and a half. 16 and 17. Dobby's telling Harry, he's got to stay where he's safe. Harry Potter must stay where he's safe. He is too great, too good to lose. If Harry Potter goes back to Hogwarts, he will be in mortal danger. Okay, and Dobby mentions there's a plot, and he says again, Harry Potter must not put himself in peril. He is too important, sir. Notice Harry doesn't ask what Dobby means. Harry doesn't say, what do you mean I'm too important? Why am I too important? At the end of the previous book, when Harry was having his debriefing with Dumbledore, what question did Harry ask of Dumbledore that he says, I cannot give you the answer? Why does Voldemort want to kill me? Right? And Dumbledore says, alas, I cannot tell you now. Well, that's a lie. He can. He just chooses not to. Okay? Harry doesn't, ask that kind of question of Dobby. Why? What do you mean I'm too important and stuff? So they keep talking. Harry mentions Dumbledore. Dobby, kind of bows his head in reverence, Dumbledore, etc. And he says, page 17, there are powers Dumbledore doesn't. Powers no decent wizard, which is almost exactly what McGonagall said to Dumbledore in the Philosopher's Stone when Harry gets dropped off at the Dursleys' house. Okay? So they continue talking. Harry finds out Dobby's been stopping his letters. He does have friends, etc., etc. And Dobby drops the pudding. And what happens as a result? What happens to Harry as a result?
He's locked in his room.
Louder?
Is he locked in his room?
He gets locked in his room. What else? He gets a letter from Mafalda Hopkirk. Underage wizards not permitted, page 21, not permitted to perform spells. Further spell work on your part may lead to expulsion. We would like to ask you to remember any magical activity, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Is this just a warning letter? Notice what the letter is presuming to be true. What is she suggesting Harry's done? A spell. He's performed illegal magic. Has Harry performed illegal magic? No, he hasn't. Okay? In just a few moments, we're going to get to a point. Yeah, I think we will. No, we definitely will. Because we're going to get towards almost the end. Where Dumbledore is going to say, essentially, innocent, one is presumed innocent. All right? He's going to say, what are you doing? Go away. He's going to say, when they find Mrs. Norris and they find the writing on the wall, enemies of the air beware, Chamber of Secrets is open, and there's Mrs. Norris frozen and stuff. Snape wants Harry to be expelled, and Dumbledore says, there is a presumption of innocence. Well, it's kind of interesting because what we're going to see later on in this novel, and then in the next novel, and then in the novel after that, and the novel after that, there is no presumed innocence. People get sent to prison before there's a hearing. People get executed before there's a hearing. And it's like, okay, now we'll ask the questions that need to be asked. And it seems, I could be wrong here, it seems that J.K. Rowling is kind of concerned about the judicial system, all right? So, Harry gets locked in his room. Fred, Ron, and George come and rescue him, take him off to the burrow, all right? And in Mr. Weasley's flying car. September 1st rolls around. They get ready to go to school. Actually, let me back up. They go to Diagon Alley to get their school books. How do they go to Diagon Alley? What method do they use? They use flu powder. Notice it's spelled this way, and it's not spelled this way. A chimney and the opening through a chimney is called the chimney flue. Okay? That's why she uses that word. Everybody else shows up in Diagon Alley. Why doesn't Harry? He doesn't pronounce it clearly enough. All right? So you would think, because he doesn't pronounce it clearly enough, where does he show up? How do you spell that? Nocturne Alley. But it's also this, right? Nocturne meaning nighttime. It's dark. It's where dark magic is sold. Dark arts material is sold. But how close is this, pronunciation-wise, to that? Yeah, not. How does he end up in Nocturne Alley from Diagon Alley? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? It's a plot device. That's all it is. He just shows up there because she, J.K. Rowling, needs Harry to be there for a particular reason. And that's so that he can end up in Borgin and Burke's, all right? When he shows up in Borgin and Burke's, where does he hide when the Malfoys come in? He gets in this cabinet, right? Why is that significant? Because it's going to come up in later books, all right? So he watches the Malfoys as Mr. Malfoy is trying to pawn a bunch of dark arts items because the Ministry of Magic is raiding people's houses up and down the country. And then they go into flourishing blocks. Okay? Got to get new school books this year. Who have we been introduced to? How do I put this? Kind of pictorially at the Burrow. What books does Mrs. Weasley have on her bookshelf in the kitchen other than cooking? Gilderoy Lockhart's. Why? Because she likes them. Because what's on the cover of every one of his books? A glossy of, Gilderoy Lockhart. Okay? So at Flourishing Blocks, what happens? Harry takes a photo with Gilderoy Lockhart. Let me ask, is that the proper way to phrase that? Why not? So rephrase it. Gilderoy Lockhart has a photo taken with Harry. Okay. Because he knows Harry will immediately do what? Draw attention. All right? What else happens? So that's one thing there. What else happens? There's a big fight, right? Between Lucius Malfoy and Arthur Weasley. Let me get a better. Look at the names, by the way. Mom's name, we'll find out later, Narcissa. Lucius is related to what? Anybody know? Beginning words of the Bible, the Old Testament in Latin. In principio, fiat lux. In the beginning, God said, let there be light. Okay? Let there be light. Fiat lux. Let there be lux, light. All right? It's from lux that we get the name, for example, Lucy. Lucy means clear-sighted, clear-eyed. Light, right? Lucius is the same. What other name do we get that's that has this part in it? Anybody know? Lucifer. Who is? The real name of the devil, Satan, right? But Lucifer isn't a bad name. I had a neighbor who every year would dress up as Alice Cooper for Halloween. He was a dead ringer anyways. Long hair, same shaped face and everything, and he had snakes. And he'd go to the front door with a big old boa wrapped around him, about an 8-foot long boa, named Lucifer. What's Lucifer mean? See, the if-fer part means to bear or carry, light bearer. He's the son of the morning star. Christ is the morning star. Lucifer, according to traditional Christian theology, was the highest of the angels, right? So, Lucius means light. Malfoy, which is mal, French, foi. What's mal? Bad. Malodorous, maladroit, maladept and stuff. Foi? Faith. Bad faith. Draco, dragon or serpent. Okay? Narcissa, in love with herself. Okay? So, we get Arthur Weasley get involved in a fight with Lucius Malfoy. Why? What does Lucius say to him that makes Arthur jump across everybody and just go hammer and tongs? Page, can't read it. 6. I think that's a 6. 6 or 5. 62. He reaches into Ginny's cauldron, pulls out an old, like this one, an old beat up book, where the insides are falling out, and says, "Dear me, what's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?" Now, notice what that statement is telling us. As long as you pay me well enough, Malfoy is saying, he'll do what? I'll be a disgrace to the name of wizard. He's saying, I can be bought. Just name the price. All right? Look at Arthur's response. We have a very different idea of what disgraces the name of wizard. And that's when Malfoy says, clearly, looking at the Grangers, Hermione's parents, how mugglish are her parents? How muggle are they? What is their occupation? They're dentists. I mean, maybe accountants would be more muggly than that, but that's pretty muggly, right? And that's when Arthur, launches in, and Fred George, get him, Dad, Hagrid breaks up the fight. Malfoy puts the book back in Ginny's cauldron, and then Hagrid says this. "You should have ignored him, Arthur. Rotten to the core. rotten to the core, right? The whole family, everyone knows that. No malfoy is worth fighting, worth listening to her. Bad blood. So, rotten to the core, and, oh, I never pointed this out before because it never hit me. And bad blood. What's the root of that word core? Pretty sure this is true. Cooler. Heart. Bad blood, bad heart. Okay? That implies what? I mean, it's kind of like saying, these, bad DNA. Can you change your DNA? No. Can you change your behaviors? Yes, you can, but you cannot change your DNA. Hagrid's essentially saying, let's use Hillary Clinton's term for Republicans back in 2016. Deplorable and irredeemable. Nothing good can come of these. All right? Let's use Frodo's terms for Gollum at the beginning. Just an enemy. So, they go off to school. Except Harry and Ron can't get through the barrier for some reason. Harry doesn't know why. So what do? They take the flying Fort Anglia. And they land in the Forbidden Forest and get the snot beat out of them by the Whomping Willow. Okay? They go up to the school. Harry notices there's nobody in Snape's seat, and they're both thinking, there is a God. Maybe Snape's gone. Maybe he's been sacked. Maybe he didn't get, the Defense Against the Dark Arts job. And Snape's standing right behind him and says, or maybe he's just wondering why you didn't get to school the normal way. And at that point, Snape, kind of wants to expel them. But they have to talk with McGonagall. How does Harry kind of, let's say, save the day with McGonagall? Page 82. What is she about to do? Bottom of the page. She's about to take points from Gryffindor before the term has even begun. Okay. That would not go over well with the rest of Gryffindor House. Harry and Ron are thinking, we're in so much trouble. So, she tells Ron, your sister's in Gryffindor, and she says, and speaking of Gryffindor, and that's when Harry interrupts her. Harry cuts her off. Okay. Notice how odd, first of all, that is. What do at least the students in Gryffindor House, what kind of relationship do they have with McGonagall? What kind of head of house is she? What kind of teacher is she? Is she the kind of person, she's the kind of teacher, I've known colleagues who have done this, who you come into class and they say, just call me Ted, hey you, bro, dude, what, very down, we're all equal here. Is that McGonagall? No, just the opposite, okay? Harry cuts her off. Professor, when we took the car, term hadn't started. So Gryffindor shouldn't really have points taken from it. Should it? Okay, now let me back up for a moment. When she first asked him, what in the world were you thinking about taking the flying Fort Anglia? Harry says, I didn't think. And she goes, well, that's obvious. And she says, you have an owl, right? Why didn't you send an owl? Okay, now, first of all, think about that logistically. They're there at King's Cross. They can't get through the barrier. So Harry's going to open Hedwig's cage, put a note on its foot, and send it. How long is that going to take? It's not like the owl apparates from where it is to Hogwarts. Where is Hogwarts in relation to London? It's in Scotland. It's not specifically said it's in Scotland, but it's a several-hour train ride. And if you've ever been to London and you get on a train for several hours, there's really only one of two places you can go for it to take several hours. You can go to Cornwall, which is about a 4.5, 5-hour train ride, or Edinburgh is about a 5-hour train ride. If you go to the Glasgow and then up into the Highlands, it's closer to 6 to 7 hours. So it's probably up in the Highlands area, okay? So that would mean sending the owl, waiting 7 or 8 hours, assuming the owl can fly at the speed the train can speed, okay, and waiting for word to come back. What are they supposed to do in the meantime? So I didn't think, well, that's obvious. Now what does Harry show us he's doing? He's thinking. He's thinking quickly. He's thinking on his feet. Okay? If there's one thing we see about Harry, it's usually in kind of clutch situations, he responds quickly and appropriately. Think back in the Forbidden Forest. In their previous detention, Hagrid sends them off and he's got Harry, and after he rearranges groups, Harry and Malfoy and Fang. And Harry and Malfoy come up on the centaur, right? Or excuse me, on the unicorn. What does Harry do? He puts his arm out to stop Malfoy. His hated enemy, but he doesn't want to see him injured. When he gets to, through the trap door and everything, what does he do? After they get through the tests, he sees Quirrell, and he doesn't know why, but he puts his hands on him. Okay? Which stops Quirrell from being able to take the stone and such. Now, he blurts out, Gryffindor shouldn't lose points. And we're told, Professor McGonagall gave him a piercing look, but he was sure she had almost smiled. Like, good job, Potter. You're thinking. There is hope for you. So she doesn't take points. Instead, they get detention. What are their detentions? What detention does Ron get? It fills a plot device. He polishes the silver in the display case. Who won head of house, who got trophies for it, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Why is it a plot device? Well, because he's going to polish a plate that's going to be, we're going to find out, we'll have writing on it that says, given to T. Riddle in, thanks for special services, kind of a thing, all right? What detention does Harry get? With Lockhart. Doing what? Signing autographs. I think it's addressing letters. Okay? Would Harry rather have Ron's? Yes. He can't stand Lockhart. So, Gilderoy Lockhart, the chapter. Page 91. Lockhart stops Harry as Harry is making his way to herbology class and essentially says, Harry, it's my fault what happened there at Flourishing Blotch. It's my fault that you took the Flying Four in Anglia. Why? You got the taste for publicity. You want a little more. Because look at you. You're 12 years old, and what does anybody really know? Well, other than, the little business about defeating the Dark Lord. What's that tell us about Lockhart? First of all, what is the little business about defeating the Dark Lord? If you go back, if you remember, in Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore says to McGonagall, I'm going to leave a letter with the Dursleys explaining everything. And she's going to go, no, that's not going to work. This kid's going to be famous. He's going to be in every book there is. And Dumbledore says, and that's exactly why I'm having him raised where he's going to be raised. Otherwise, he's going to be full of all kinds of ideas and such. Okay? Think of the name, Gilderoy Lockhart. Gild, de, Roy, which comes from the French, raw. What does gild mean? Like to gild something. To gold it. To cover it with gold. Now, that gold can be real gold, or it can be spray paint. So why do you gild something? You make it look more than it is. You make it worth more than it is. Okay? So gold from or on. Had a friend in 4th grade named Leroy. It literally means the king. Okay? So it's kind of like the gilded king, the golden king. So what does that mean? This word is the important one. Gilded. If something is gilded, it's not what really? It's not real gold. You know, you get married, you get a wedding ring. If you get a gilded ring, then that means the ring's made out of, tin that's been plated with gold. Not solid gold, not 14, 18, carat, etc., etc. Lockhart, that part's pretty easy. His heart isn't open, right? Why not? What's it locked around? Louder? Fame. Keep going. Himself. If anybody should be named this, it's Gilderoy Lockhart. He's in love with himself. How do we know? First lesson. What's he do? He walks down the staircase, he holds the book, and he says, me. Holding the book with the picture of himself. What's the first quiz he gives to students? It's about 150 questions all about him. What's my favorite? And who gets them all right, by the way? Hermione. All right? What about his first actual lesson? It's a practical lesson, right? It's not theory. So here we have somebody who's going to teach them, supposedly, practical defense against the dark arts. In book 5, we're going to have somebody who's going to teach them theoretical defense against the dark arts. That's like teaching theoretical how to drive a car. Read a book, and then go sit in a manual transmission car and drive it. Not going to happen. All right? So what's his practical lesson? What are they supposed to do at the end of that class period? He's got a bunch of Cornish pixies. He lets them out. Put them back. And he tries, and what do we see? He fails. Who does put them back? Hermione, Harry, and Ron to some extent. Neville's sitting up there hanging from a chandelier. Okay? So, the end of that chapter, 103, Ron says, can you believe him? And notice the word believe is in italics. Not sure why, other than that, the idea of belief, what to believe, who to believe, becomes really important as we move through the series until really we get to book 7. And 7 is all about, book 7 is at least partially, all about who/what/how to believe. Right? There's 2 narratives going on in that book. And Harry has to decide which narrative, which story, which plot do I believe. Okay? So, Hermione, he just wants to give us hands-on experience. Harry, hands-on. Hermione, he didn't have a clue. Rubbish. You've read his books. Look at all those amazing things he's done. Now, notice what Hermione equates. What he wrote in the books is what he's done. In other words, the books are revealing what to us? Truth. Facts. Right? Look at what Ron says. He says he's done. What is Ron's comment mean?
He's a skeptic.
Okay, he's a skeptic. What else does it mean? Don't believe everything you read. How is that important here? That idea. Is there going to be another book that they're going to read that you can't believe? I saw a couple heads do this. Which book? What book is Harry going to read that he takes to be truth? Tom Riddle's diary. He reads it like, I'll give away something. Hagrid was responsible for the opening of the chamber 50 years ago. Not true. But he reads and believes and accepts it as truth. Okay? So, we get introduced early on to this idea that not everything you read can be taken as true. And we're going to see this develop even more later on, because we're going to hear an awful lot about the Daily Prophet, okay? And give me an example of another publication in the wizarding world. The Quibbler. Sorry, my ears are all full of stuff. The Quibbler, okay? Give me examples of these in our world, the real world. What's the Daily Prophet equivalent to? Let's say in the United States, because ideally you'd have to say, okay, in England, what are these equivalent to? In the United States, what would be equivalent of the Daily Prophet? New York Times, Washington Post, the LA Times, the Miami Herald, the Chicago Tribune, any one of those. Quibbler? National Enquirer. Okay, if you were in England, the Sun, the Daily Mail, things like that. Right? In other words, this is what's called what? The tabloid. It's the kind of thing that has unbelievable, lurid headlines on the front page. You go to a Publix or Kroger, you go to the grocery, the checkout line, and there's National Enquirer or something with a grainy photograph of something on Mars, and it says Elvis alive, kind of a thing. Okay. Well, the New York Times doesn't publish that kind of stuff, right? No, that would be false. That would be journalistic malpractice. And I could say some things, but I won't go there. Well, she's going to raise questions about that, about what is reliable, what is not reliable. Okay? Chapter 7, Mudbloods and Murmurs. Quidditch practice. Harry's again on the Quidditch team. Okay? Why? Because you don't get kicked off. Why is it significant that Harry was put on the Gryffindor Quidditch team in his first year? And how did he get put on that Quidditch team? First of all, are first years eligible? No, they can't play. Okay? So how come Harry could play? Who kind of took those rules and gently massaged them and bent them? McGonagall did. Why? Because she wanted to beat Snape. Snape has been gloating for the last several years. Okay? She sees Harry do that dive on the broomstick to catch Neville's remember all and stuff and thinks he's a natural and such. Tells him, your father was a seeker. He was a great Quidditch player. We find out Harry is the youngest Quidditch player in over 100 years. Right? So now who's on the Slytherin team this year? How'd he get in? Pure talent? Daddy bought his place in. Did he literally, give Snape a handful of money? No, what did he do? He bought them all brand new brooms. Okay? So we get the practice in page 112. Hermione says, because Hermione and Ron are there to watch their first practice, at least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in. They got in on pure talent. Remember what the sorting hat says when Harry puts it on? What are we going to do with you? He says, let's see, not a bad mind, not a ringing endorsement, by the way, right? Not a bad mind doesn't mean genius level IQ, A+ quality, student. It means C+, B-, probably, a little bit above average. Okay, what else? A desire to prove himself or a thirst to prove himself. Talent. Oh my, yes, the sorting hat says. Okay? There's going to be a reason why there's a couple of reasons why there's that talent thing that the sorting hat says. So, Harry gets in on pure talent. No one asks your opinion. You filthy little mudblood, and all hell breaks loose. Ron tries to, hit him with a spell, but one, the spell doesn't work right, and two, Ron has his wand pointed backwards. Not a very bright thing to do. So, Harry and Hermione take Ron off to Hagrid's, because he's, coughing up slugs. And they talk a little bit, page 115, about Lockhart, and Lockhart says he was the only person for the job, and he mentions the job's kind of been jinxed, okay? Getting very difficult to find anyone for the dark arts job. People aren't too keen to take it on, starting to think it's jinxed. No one's lasted long for a while now. What does that mean, no one's lasted long for a while now? No one's lasted longer than a year for several years. We will find out later when that began. So, Harry, Malfoy called Hermione something, it must have been really bad, because everyone went wild. Ron, it was bad. And he tells Hagrid what Malfoy called her. He didn't, Hagrid says. He did. Hermione says, but golly gee, Mr. Hagrid, I don't know what mudblood means. Why doesn't Hermione know what the word means? Because she's a muggle. She's not raised around people who use this word. Yeah, but she reads everything, right? Is the word mudblood never used in Hogwarts of history? No, it's not. That's how offensive the word is. Ron, it's about the most insulting thing he could think of. Mudbloods are really foul name for someone who is muggle-born. Non-magic parents. He says there are some wizards, like Malfoy's family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood. What did Hagrid call the Malfoys? Bad blood. Okay? Malfoys think only people who are pure-blooded are good. Both these ideas come from the same frame of thought, the same ideology, okay? That one can be judged by what is inside, okay? I mean, the rest of us know it doesn't make any difference at all. Look at Neville. Neville's a pureblood, and he's walking 2 left feet. I mean, he can't do anything right. The interesting thing, Rowling doesn't create that phrase or that word, mudblood. It comes from the early 20th century United States. What's its modern equivalent? You probably don't want to use the word, but I will. It's nigger. That's how offensive it is. It was used a lot by the KKK. What's it imply? When they used it, they didn't use it the way Rowling saying here. It's people who rose up from the mud. Okay? pretty offensive, right? Notice Ron is Ron, how do I want to put this? Is Ron merely defending Hermione's honor, so to speak? I mean, that is definitely part of it. I think Ron is also morally outraged. And not just Ron. Not Elijah Wood, that's Frodo. Wood, the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. Can't remember his first name. Oliver Wood. I knew it started with a vowel. Oliver Wood is also, I mean, that's why they jump the whole Slytherins. Because it's like, hey, if one Slytherin says this, then what does that mean? They all agree. Okay? And remember, the Sorting Hat was willing to do what? It was willing to put Harry in Slytherin. Okay? So, Hagrid, I don't blame you for trying to curse him, Ron. What's that another way of putting? Or what's another way to put that?
You done good.
Yeah, way to go, Ron. You got to stop that kind of nonsense, okay? But, he says, maybe it was a good thing your wand backfired. Why? Because Lucius Malfoy probably wouldn't have appreciated that. So, Death Day Party. Like I said, I'm trying to go through a lot. Harry gets in trouble with Filch. Look at the name. Argus, Filch. How many of you ever used this word? It's a verb. Anybody know what it means? It's often used in connection with this word. Pilfer. Anybody know what pilfer means? Yeah, it's like, you just kind of, you're light-handed. You take things that don't belong to you. Filching is the same. When you take something that belongs to somebody else. First name, Argus. If I remember right, Greek mythology, it's a 1,000-eyed dog. Okay. Cerberus is the 3-headed dog. We had Cerberus, a.k.a. Fluffy, in the first book. Okay? So now we have the 1,000-eyed Filcher. Not literally 1,000-eyed. Why does she use these names? What's Filch's job? One of them, seemingly. Catch people who break the school rules. And he has Mrs. Norris to help him. He has his eyes out there, his spies, So Harry gets in trouble, and who comes to Harry's rescue? Not literally comes, but causes a diversion so Harry can leave. Not Peeves. Nearly Headless Nick, okay? But while Harry's in trouble with Filch, he finds out Filch is a squib. He's non-magical, and he's trying to learn how to do magic through a correspondence course. So, Harry's like, how can I repay you, Nick? And Nick says, come to my Death Day party. Not birthday, Death Day. When was his Death Day? October 31st, 1492. Okay? And what anniversary of his death day is he getting ready to spend? His 500th. So that's telling us book 2 occurs in what year? 1992. So book 1 is in 1992. Book 1 is in 1991. 1991 is when J.K. Rowling had the idea pop into her mind of Harry Potter. So each book takes place in an intervening year. In 1997, that's when she publishes the first Harry Potter novel. But she's already got kind of notes for all 7 books. And so you could go on and, do this all the way down. Okay? This is going to be important because in book 2, we're going to find out 50 years previously, something happened. So 50 years previously, 1942. So Harry, Ron, and Hermione go to Nick's death day party, and as they're leaving, Harry hears a voice, page 137. Rip, tear, kill, hungry, so long, kill, time to kill, etc. I smell blood. He follows the voice, and that leads him to the third floor corridor with writing on the wall in blood. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. And Harry says, what's that hanging underneath? And there's Mrs. Norris, hanging by her tail, Ron, let's get out of here. Why does Ron say, let's get out of here? Yeah, this is not a good situation for us to be found in. Harry, shouldn't we try and help? Where else has Harry said that kind of comment? To Dobby at the beginning. When Dobby says, house elf has to be freed, etc., Harry says, can't anyone help you? And then what does he say? Can't I? Right? And that's when Dobby says, I've heard of your greatness, but not of your goodness. Shouldn't we try and help? Who's he talking about helping? Mrs. Norris. Does Harry love this cat? Does Harry have a fond attitude towards this cat? Does Harry recognize this cat's right to existence, so to speak? No, he doesn't. Ron, trust me, we don't want to be found here. What is Ron kind of serving as the voice of in that scene? Common sense. Common sense says what? Be as far from here as you can when this is discovered. But what happens? There's Malfoy down at the end of the hallway, and they get caught. Okay? Writing on the wall, Snape wants to fire, have them all expelled. Page 144 is when Dumbledore says, innocent until proven guilty, Severus. Filch wants justice, aka revenge. My cat's been petrified. I want punishment, And what does Dumbledore say? Don't worry. Professor Sprout got a new shipment of what in? They worked on it in their herbology class. Mandrakes. Why? Plot device. It's all it is. She needs something to take care of petrified people later on. And comes up. Mandrakes, by the way, it's not something J.K. Rowling introduces. There are real plants called mandrakes. They don't look like little babies stuffed in the ground, though. Hermione asks Professor Binns about the Chamber of Secrets. He goes on and on. It's not real. There's no truth to it. And she says, yeah, but don't legends usually have some origin in reality? Kind of like she's been reading The Lord of the Rings and listening to Aragorn. Okay? What's his final, rhetorical response? What does he say to stop the questioning? If Dumbledore can't find it, then nobody can. Okay? Page 155. Harry, Ron, and Hermione go back to the scene of the crime, and what do they see? Spiders. And Ron backs up. Hermione giggles. Because Ron says, I don't mind them dead. I just don't like the way they move. It's not funny. If you must know, when I was 3, Fred turned my teddy bear into a great big filthy spider because I broke his toy broomstick. You wouldn't like them either if you'd been holding your bear and suddenly it had too many legs and ... So when he was 3, he's holding a big teddy bear and suddenly It's got legs and is moving and wriggling. What's the problem? Why point that out? Anybody know? How old was Fred then? He was 5. Okay? What kind of magic is that? Okay, illegal. It's transfiguration. You know, their first transfiguration lessons, what do? They turn a button into a beetle, or a beetle into a button. They turn a pincushion into a hedgehog. When they are 11, at school, they have wands. Fred is 5. He's not at school. He hasn't learned anything about transfiguration. And he doesn't, legally at least, have a wand. So how is he able to do that? According to the world that she's created, he shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, literally, he should not have the power to be able to do that. Yes, somebody in my previous class said, yeah, but Harry does stuff without having a wand. You know, Dursley's gang wants to beat him up and he suddenly jumps up on top of a building. True. That's unfocused, we're told in the novels. We're going to see somebody else later on who, up to the age of 10, does magic, but it's unfocused. This person cannot, zero in like a laser. This is zeroing in like a laser. It's breaking one of the laws of the world that she created. And I'm pretty sure J.K. Rowling, has given a reason for why he can do this in Pottermore. But that quote unquote, that's breaking the rules of the game. Because Pottermore exists outside this. It's not part of the novels as they were constructed. It's an attempt to do what? It's an attempt on the part of the author to govern and control everything in the world that she creates without doing that within the world she creates. Okay? That's what Tolkien talks about when he talks about allegory. That's the author trying to control how one understands and interprets what happens. All right? So that's just one little inconsistency. So Hermione comes up with the idea of Polyjuice Potion. Why do they want the Polyjuice Potion? So they can go to the Slytherin homeroom, common room, and find out what. Because what do they think? Ron especially. Malfoy's got to be the heir of Slytherin. What should Harry have learned from the previous book? It's not always obvious. Don't jump to conclusions. Remember when he goes down through the trapdoor and he sees Quirrell? You? And Quirrell, and he goes, but I thought Snape. He said, yeah, Snape did play the part, didn't he? And we get a mention of, like a bat swooping in. Well, she's going to use that image of Snape throughout, of Snape as a bat, so that people come to think Snape's a vampire bat. He can change form like Dracula. It's all a red herring. Those are all false breadcrumbs designed to lead us astray. Okay? So, Rogue Bludger. We've got 2 minutes. Quidditch match. Bludger comes after Harry. He falls, breaks his arm. Lockhart fixes him, kind of, by removing all the broken bones. So he's just got a limp piece of flesh. Think about that for a moment. Think what your arm would look like if all the bones were suddenly removed. It'd just be like, pounds of fat just hanging there. It'd be really disgusting. So he goes to the infirmary. And who shows up? Dobby does. And Dobby tells Harry, bottom of 177, top of 178. If Harry Potter only knew, if he knew what he means to us, to the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world, Dobby remembers how it was, and he who must not be named was at the height of his powers. Life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. Harry Potter survived, and the Dark Lord's power was broken, and it was a new dawn, sir. Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end. Now, I think I mentioned it here. In that interview that she gave with the Vancouver Sun, she talked about, how her Christianity informed the work, but she couldn't really say anything because it would give away the ending. I think what we have here is Dobby giving a very, very cryptic, elusive paraphrase to like the beginning of St. John's Gospel. Where John talks about, Jesus was in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was God, blah, blah, blah. And then does what? And that light shone in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not, and the darkness fought. We have light and dark. Okay? Dobby is saying Harry is what? He's that light. You're that beacon of hope. And his implication is, and as long as you're alive, then we can have hope. But if you're dead, that's why, go back, that's why you're too important. Okay, we'll stop there. We've got to, actually we're not too much. We've got to finish this on whatever the day that is, Friday. Start Prisoner of Azkaban, because I'm going to bring Prisoner of Azkaban Friday just in case. And I will